It's simple. Eat less, move more, use common sense with your food choices. That's the answer. It's not a profitable answer, though. So what's profitable is scandal.
I'm a little bit older than you. Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. I'm 3.5 years older than you.
That's nothing.
Well, I'm a little older than you. That's it.
Well, a little older.
But
Sounds like a lot older when you're my age. I'm like,
Yeah, you had a big birthday. I'm not going to divulge.
No, don't do it to me.
But I'm still in the 70s. I was born in the 70s. So in 1970, actually, I looked it up earlier.
Oh, tell me.
Excuse me.
Please.
Sorry, I'll do this. So diabetes in 1970, 2% for women, 2.7% for men.
I know.
Diabetes today, 12% of the American population. That's 40 million people.
That's what we know of, by the way.
That's what we know. And then there's another 38, 40, 42% pre-diabetic.
And that doesn't count who's hyperinsulinemic.
And 90% of those people don't know it. It's undiagnosed. So then obesity rates in 1970, it's hard. They don't know for sure. Somewhere between 10 to 12%. Obesity rates today, 45%.
As 75% are overweight or obese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think that there's like 10 to 15% morbidly obese, like BMI over 40.
Yeah.
And I know BMI, that classification
it's crude,
offends someone.
However, it's still a rough indication.
Yeah,
I mean,
at an epidemiological level, it's okay. At a personal level, But still, what's going on in the last 50 years? Because I'm no evolutionary biologist, but from what I remember about biology, it takes a long time for genes to change,
it's
right?
A quantum leap.
So is obesity?
In genetics.
But some people are telling us obesity is genetic. So what do you think?
Oh God, all right. Let's take it from the beginning of where you started, right in the 70s, and if we went a little farther back, like the 60s, I think it was 5%.
Yeah.
So you obviously see a positive correlation with an increase in high-calorie processed foods and a more sedentary lifestyle due to the advancements of technology, right? So as we sit more and we eat more, calories-wise, doesn't even need to be more food with regard to volume, but the calories in these foods are so huge. And we end up swigging down a soda, like a big gulp from 7-Eleven that's 300 calories, that, by the way, releases no satiety hormones whatsoever and leaves you feeling hungrier, which is, sidebar. So as this happened, it's not a coincidence that Americans got bigger. And as the SAD diet or the standard American diet has spread globally, you're starting to see the same health correlations in countries around the world that have sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
Now that we're getting McDonald's in these places, I'm not kidding you. Like, it's so obvious. It's not complicated. And the argument, like, let's go down all three reasons, right? You're pathetic, you're weak, you're lazy, the fat shaming dialogue. 75% of the population is pathetic, weak, and lazy. 75% has a genetic disease called obesity that didn't exist just several decades ago. Like, and when everyone comes into contact with the SAD diet and modern day life, everybody gets bigger. Like, come on. It doesn't take a genius. I don't need a tightly controlled, human randomized control trial. Like, we don't need it. It's obvious. You can see it. Now, with that said, the dialogue of obesity as a disease is one of the most malicious, nefarious dialogues. Back in 2013, the American Medical Association had their annual meeting where they do their housekeeping and they vote on their stuff, right? One of the things on the ballot that they were voting on is whether or not to make obesity a disease, like officially. Or are we going to label it a disease? They put together a panel of their own experts who got together, did the research, came back and said, no, it is not a medical disease. And they gave all the reasons why. And here are just a few. Number one, if you are obese, it doesn't necessarily mean you're sick. Usually, yes, it's related to 170 comorbidities, but people can get away with it for quite some time, especially if they're exercising, by the way, which is the number one factor. Like, you can be big, but if you work out, good chance you can stave off disease for a long time. Okay, the second reason is because it's an adaptation, meaning we're designed to take energy that we don't use, calories, and store it in our fat cells, right, as energy for a future day. It's also the law of thermodynamics. Energy does not get created or destroyed in a vacuum. If your body is this vacuum, fat doesn't just appear there. You have to consume calories that then get converted into triglycerides and stored in your fat cells, right? And to burn it, you need to have activity that has an energy draw. Okay, so we're adapting to an abundance of calories and growing in size, but they did it anyway. And the reason they did it is so they could, and by the way, like, I want people to get all the help they can get. So it was to charge more for obesity related conditions.
Right. Because once you deem something a disease,
bingo,
you can
bill for it.
You can bill for it.
They could bill Medicare twice, like I can't remember the exact amount, but significantly more, an extra charge if they talk to you about your weight in that meeting, simply bypassing that legislation. Now,
and develop
drugs and all covered by insurance. And here's the thing, I would love for people to get the care they need, and big insurance is a terrifying conversation that makes big pharma look like a fucking newborn baby. I mean, and a great person to talk to about that is a guy named Brigham Bueller, who's just blow your mind. It's such a terrifying conversation. So I would love for people to get more help. However, when the narrative gets manipulated into, oh, you're genetically fucked, you're diseased, it feels great in the moment because there's no self-agency, right? And you've been beating yourself up over it. So you're like, oh, this is such a relief because I hated myself for this, which you shouldn't do anyway. But nevertheless.
Yeah, you're absolved on some level of the
responsibility.
Moral transgression of being overweight or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you've now been disempowered, though, because as a victim, if you're a victim and you are out of control, you have no control to change the choice, to change the outcome. And you have essentially been put into the position of take our drug, let us surgically alter your digestive tract. Like, it doesn't matter anyway, so eat our food. Like, it's just.
Well, you become a ping pong ball between big food and big pharma, basically.
Yes.
And you lose all agency.
100%.
Yeah.
It kills me.
And I think the point that you make is really interesting about the nature of fat, because we tend to vilify it, right? And we don't like the way it looks on Instagram and all this stuff. Yeah. But it is adaptive.
Yes.
We evolved to store fat at certain times of the year, generally like in the late summer and early fall, kind of like a bear.
Yes.
Because our bodies, our innate wisdom knew that there would be a paucity of calories right around the corner because there's winter's fallow. So, but now, of course, as you said, in an era where you can like literally dial up like a pineapple any time of the day, any time of year or whatever.
God, I wish it was a pineapple.
I know. Yeah. Babe. If only it was a pineapple.
God.
So, that essentially there is no scarcity or very little in most of the world. And such that our adaptive mechanisms have become leveraged against us.
100%.
And so, storing fat, like you said, it's just warehousing energy for a rainy day.
Yep.
So it's not anything to villainize per se. It is our own body's adaptive mechanisms working the way that they're supposed to work. It's not a bug in the system.
Nope. And so now, with that said, I've had a couple doctors talk to me about like the Pima Indians, for example. And I should lean on this for just a second. You can be genetically predisposed. I'm genetically predisposed.
Right.
So the Pima Indians, I think, are the most prone to obesity, the culture the most prone to obesity globally. But if you look at how they evolved and that food was scarce and they adapted, so the metabolism is slower.
The thrifty gene
yes,
or something.
Yes.
Which, wonderful in a famine.
Right.
Awful on Instagram. Yes. Wonderful in a famine. Not great on the Serengeti of Facebook.
No, not at all. But it's like, I have, anyone I've ever dated is not that person. They can eat whatever they want and never gain a pound. I can't.
That's my wife. It's awful.
Is it fair?
It's not fair.
Life is not fair. So I don't get to have, we went to dinner last night. She has the ragu and a glass of wine and an ice cream after dinner. The bitch is this big. Mm-hmm. I had sparkling water with a lime, a watercress salad, and a half of a filet with grilled vegetables. I didn't have dessert.
Wait, Jillian Michaels really? Because come on, most people are going to look at you and say, that woman was just blessed with that ripped figure. And you're like, no, actually, I work really hard for this.
No, I was 175 pounds at 13.
Yeah. So I was a very chubby kid too.
I know, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. I was chubby recently.
I couldn't believe that either.
Yeah. So we know what it feels like. And I think that is an important dimension of the conversation because, it's like walking a tightrope to talk about obesity.
I won't walk that fucking tightrope.
Well,
we're not doing anyone any favors. No, Jeff, I'm not brave. I've been canceled so many times. I don't care anymore. You just end up leaning into it.
Yeah.
I will not do it. We aren't serving anyone.
Yeah.
And if we were to really go down that rabbit hole, you want to talk about race and obesity? You want to talk about real systemic racism? People of color are being targeted by these companies 2-to-1.
Yeah.
No one's outraged?
Yeah. Like Callie Means. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. He'll talk about how
Coke,
the civil rights groups will go and they'll get donations from Big Food, and then they'll turn around and say that if you don't give children on Snaps soda, it's racist. I mean, he's got a whole thing on it. It's insane. Yeah. I've seen it in the gay community with puberty blockers. Big Pharma will pay, give donations to the HRC. And then if there's a medical organization that's like, off-label cancer drugs for 12-year-olds, there's a health equity and inclusion score or something. It's like the HEIC score. I can't remember exactly, but there's a score and you get a bad score. And then you're a transphobe. They weaponize these civil rights groups who you think are advocates with donations to shut down the dialogue.
Yeah. I think that to parse the dialogue as eloquently as I can here in real time is that there is that you can be beautiful at any size, but you can't necessarily be healthy at any size.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The reality is that even the intuitive eating movement was corrupted by Big Food. And it's like, listen to your body. Well, no one can listen to their body when you've hijacked the reward center of their brain. Yeah. You have food scientists who literally manipulate the food. If we were to go back to that conversation about soda, right? And let's take it with the GLP-1 drugs over here. So what are these drugs doing? The Ozempics, the Wegovis, what are they doing? They're curbing your appetite. And they work on the gut-brain axis, right? So they make you feel full for longer because you literally are full for a really long time, hence the people that can end up with intestinal blockages or stomach paralysis, which is why you have to stop taking it before a surgery because the food doesn't digest and you can vomit on anesthesia, aspirate, and get bacterial pneumonia. And it affects the appetite center of your brain, the neurons in that part of your brain that impact hunger by mimicking a satiety hormone called GLP-1. So what's the mechanism by which you're losing weight? You're not eating as much. Okay. Great. But the body has homeostatic mechanisms that are meant to control appetite inherently, just the same way it handles your core body temperature. There's a host of shit your body does that you don't think about, like the pH balance of your stomach acid, the pH balance of your blood. Your body does this on its own, and it regulates hunger on its own. Why are we not able to regulate hunger anymore? Well, what releases satiety hormones? It's like, was it cholecystokinin, peptide YY, leptin, GLP-1, right? All these different hormones. Fat will, protein will, fiber will. There's no fat, there's no protein, and there's no fiber in French fries and a soda and a Snickers bar. There might be some fat in a Snickers bar, but like there's no quality fat. It's like trans fats and shit. Point being, you drink that same soda, right? That we were talking about that has 300 calories, no fat, no protein, no fiber. And not only is it not going to make you feel full, it's actually going to make you hungry because of how it impacts insulin levels. And then it ends up making you hypoglycemic with low blood sugar because you cleared all the sugar out of the blood. You're hungry and you eat more. Plus, it smashes the reward center of your brain and it hits like a Mack truck, like nicotine and cocaine with dopamine and serotonin. Like you're being hijacked. You don't need the drug. There's nothing wrong with you. Yeah. And so it's like big food loves that dialogue. Because it's like, oh, stop the shaming. And here's a good clue, okay? Whenever we start with the shaming dialogue, that's a conversation they don't want you to have. So it's like fat shamer. When you're saying like you're sounding the alarm bell, you're a fat shamer. When you're thinking like, guys, 12-year-olds like on fucking off-label cancer drugs, like their brain is not developed. Maybe we need to talk about this. Transphobe. They will immediately try to shut down the dialogue. And that's what the healthy at every size thing is. No food is bad food. And they will literally go to registered dietitians on the web and pay them to promote these messages. It's like, where is the Hippocratic Oath for our industry? My God.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also, you probably know Robert Lustig. Have you ever met him?
I do. I've interviewed him.
Oh, yeah.
I really like him.
So with the soda stuff too, I mean, the fructose in that soda or the high fructose corn syrup, that is actually acting on a mechanism that's not that different than when you eat fruit during a harvest in the fall, because when you do that, your body is adapted then to become insulin resistant and actually store energy as fat because it knows that winter is coming. But then, of course, in our day and age, winter never comes. We just keep fructose. We become more and more insulin resistant. And then our mitochondria doesn't use substrates for energy. It just goes and we store more and more fat. And so again, what you say is that now there's, teams of chemists essentially engineering foods for this bliss point that essentially
exactly.
So
it's like don't
no
beat yourself up over it. Exactly. That's what we're saying is like you shouldn't be beating yourself up over it, but of course you are because no one told you what the hell is actually going on. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, do you feel ashamed of yourself? Don't. You have a disease and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm diseased. Not we've totally poisoned you and hijacked your biochemistry with this food. Yeah. Wink, wink.
Yeah. Not to mention the
hundreds
of other obesogens that you
Yes.
talk about, where we slather them on our skin and all these other things.
Have you talked to Darren O'Lean about that? I'm sure you have.
Not yet, although I'm going there in a month.
He wrote a great book where you just want to jump off of a bridge when you're done. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, it's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the cleaning supplies. You can become Howard Hughesian by the time you're done. But my philosophy is like, okay, Jill, just mitigate it. Mitigate. Less is better. Less is progress because you can't get it all out.
So the AMA calls obesity a disease in 2013. And then fast forward 10 years or 11 years now, we have this new class of drugs, these GLP-1 agonists, that essentially they like mimic what food would normally be doing. Yeah. So you actually make
crack though.
But like crack. So because you actually make GLP-1 in your intestines, and that tells your pancreas to make insulin, and it obviously makes you feel sated, and insulin will then vacuum or glucose out of the bloodstream. So really what it's doing is sort of mimicking eating.
Yeah.
But without any of the micronutrients or any of the other things. And then, of course, you're stuck on it forever until you get off it, and then you gain
it all back.
Right?
Mm-hmm. With significantly less muscle and bone.
And, of course, I mean, the list price, I mean, I read this about Novo Nordisk. So they're the company, they're a Danish company, I believe, that their market cap last year in 2023 was bigger than the entire GDP of the Danish economy.
What, the fifth largest company in the world now or
second biggest company in Europe. I know that much. I know. And so the list price, I believe, for Ozempic is like about $1,000 a month or $950 a month.
Like
but I mean, what does it really cost them?
I think $300. You know where I'm getting that from? Is that guy Brigham Bueller, who was teaching me about big insurance. And he was explaining, like, okay, this is the cost, right?
Right.
But the insurance company is really paying this,
Yeah.
and they're charging you that, and you think they're absorbing the cost, but they're not. They're actually profiting because you're paying more than the drug actually costs.
That's
it's
exactly it.
Freaking diabolical.
Exactly it.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, you know, I was like looking, it's like, okay, what are the other side effects? Well, let's see.
Oh my God.
Oh
God. How much do I know?
Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, constipation, gastric reflux. Okay, that's just sort of the prosaic anodyne one.
Yeah, that's pretty much like at least 50%.
Yeah. Fatigue, injection site reactions. Okay, but pancreatitis, hypoglycemia, thyroid C-cell tumors, kidney problems, diabetic retinopathy, gallbladder problems. I mean,
intestinal blockage, stomach paralysis. Don't forget those. Muscle loss.
Think we've seen
suicidal ideation.
Wow. And I don't think we've even seen the beginning of the
fallout. Oh no. No. I had a doctor tell me, and here's what sucks about this, and the reason that I'm the one championing this message is because the doctors actually can't take an aggressive stand because they will literally be blacklisted. Mm-hmm. It's insanity. So I get like on the down low, like, hey, Jill, here's, have you seen what's going on with the FDA and the suicidal ideation piece? Article. Here's what we think's going on with that because you make X amount of serotonin in your gut and this F's with your gut and this and that and the other. You're not able to make, it's like they all tell me secretly. And then I go out, I'm like, guess what's happening? But it's terrifying to me.
It doesn't address any root cause. So generally, I was very overweight. And when I unpacked why, I was diabetic and I was insulin resistant.
You were diabetic?
Yeah. So I was sort of borderline diabetic, very above the pre-diabetic.
Oh my God, Jeff, you're like a better success story than me. I don't think I like it.
No, you win. You're a better success story. But I had like 6.7%, hemoglobin A1C. So kind of like lower end of the diabetic spectrum. And I started wearing, the CGM, and I was like 125 milligrams per deciliter fasting glucose. So that's kind of on the very upper end of prediabetes.
Wow.
But my issue was metabolic dysfunction, right? That's really what was going on.
Right.
I was insulin resistant. My mitochondria, my cells were just not creating energy properly. Like we have a very good mutual friend. That's how we met, Casey Means, who talks about this. Is that essentially at the core upstream from all of this is metabolic dysfunction. And now we're talking about 92% of the American population is somewhat metabolically dysfunctional.
Yeah.
So what I had to do to get to the root cause of my problem is I had to reboot my metabolism and make energy more efficiently. And once I was able to do that, then I basically, we hear a lot about downward spirals in the body. I created an upward spiral in my body, and everything changed. My body composition changed. I went and got like a DEXA scan. I was like, no way, that can't be me. I'm the fat kid. Like that can't be me.
It's so awesome.
So, so when I look at, these drugs, well, this would be actually an interesting question for you because when I think about modern allopathic medicine, I can recognize many of its great attributes to address traumatic and acute problems. I break my leg. Hallelujah.
Get MRSA, load me up on Cipro, baby. So hell yeah, a measles vax, fire away.
Yeah. So is there a use for Ozempic and Wegovy in acute or traumatic situations? Because obviously it was used for diabetics prior to it being sort of a weight loss fad.
But we don't even need medication for type 2 diabetes either. Yeah, it's a lifestyle disease. And this is, but let's...
Okay, so morbidly obese
So I've gotten into this conversation with many doctors who I really respect. And we can get 90% of the way onto the same page, right? So they're like, okay, these people that want to do it for 10 pounds, bad idea. Will you plateau on it? Okay, Jill, I'll give you that. Yes. Will, if they get off of it, will they probably gain all their weight back? The meta-analysis says yes. I'm like, then why are you recommending it? Because they will hold on to it as a life or death intervention tool. And these are doctors I really respect, like Dr. William Lee, Dr. Peter Attia. They will say to you, like, it's my last resort, but, and it's not just them, it's my last resort, but like sometimes, you need points on the scoreboard. And I'm like, but where does it go? And here's the argument. The argument they make to me is, they're morbidly obese, Jill. They've given up on life, Jillian. We got to get points on the board in order to get a forward momentum. This is verbatim. I'm not kidding.
Sports analogy.
Okay, I swear to God, in order to get a forward momentum, and then once they've got this renewed lease on life, they're going to be motivated to then go to the gym and work out. And here are the reasons I don't agree. Because if anybody has worked with people that are morbidly obese, it was me. I didn't need any of these drugs to get them to that place. I got weight off them faster than those drugs ever did, with zero negative side effects, only upside. And then when you're like, yeah, well, all those contestants on Biggest Loser gained it back. That's not the truth. That's a lie. 65% of them gained it back. And if you're like, well, that's a huge number. Bullshit. You know what the statistics are for people that lose a large amount and gain it back? 95%. Only 5% survive the gauntlet. So we're doing amazing in that aspect of having a higher number for people who lost it and kept it off. And I could pull up contestants on my Instagram right now that I still talk to all the time. And I encourage you to go check out, like Michelle Aguilar, for example. The point being, don't give me the whole they're beyond the pale. That's not true. I've proven to you they're not beyond the pale using diet and exercise, and I had a better success rate. So your argument is moot. You lose. I've shown you it's not the case. So my other piece of this is, you think you're going to catalyze them towards a change on these drugs, but I don't see anybody going to the gym because they're so nauseous and they're so weak from not eating that they're losing insane amounts of muscle on a DEXA scan. And Peter Attia came out and he's like, here's the thing. I'm seeing muscle loss at a rate that alarms me. Yeah. So I'm being very careful who in my practice gets this medication. We do a DEXA scan before they even go on it. If they're older, they don't get to go on it because they don't have muscle to spare. And it's like, so your whole notion of, this is going to be what lights their fire. None of the data says so. In fact, the data says they gain it all back when they get off of it. Where's your data? Like, that's great in theory, but it's not playing out that way. So for me, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm the girl, by the way, that would take you down a poison path if I thought salvation was at the end of it. I have recommended Chantix to people. We know that's terrible for you. But
is that the gum?
Oh, it's a medication. No, that's Nicorette gum.
Oh, okay.
Chantix is a pharmaceutical. I think it's pills that you take, and it's like clockwork orange. I mean, it like you smoke and you smoke until you literally want to vomit from smoking. And it has a 35% cessation rate. So, and you get off of it. It ends.
Yeah.
So this never ends. There's no alternative that's better.
Yeah. This is a statin for weight loss, basically.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Where are we going?
And God help you if you're one of those people that gets pancreatitis or kidney failure or gallbladder disease or thyroid cancer or intestinal block. And then the doctors will say to me like, well, Jill, it's kind of a small percent. You haven't seen usage on this scale. Like, wait till this scales. We've never seen this before, nor have we seen it in the doses you are now prescribing it. Wegovi, which is semaglutide, FDA approved for weight loss, because that's another thing.
Right.
People are like, oh, it's a diabetes drug. Not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah.
Ozempic is. Wegovi is not. They're both semaglutide. Wegovi is a higher dose. That was only approved by the FDA in 2021. The FDA that's so ethical that the guy who approved OxyContin went to work for Purdue. I don't mean to put on my tin hat, but for God's sake, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, Jeff.
So, I mean, here's the problem. Here's the difficulty.
Hit me.
Is that for years we've been trying to tell people, well, it's about willpower. You just have to eat less and go to the gym more. And so that has
Second part's true.
The second part
Second part is true.
But it's become sort of anathema, or it's become sort of out of vogue, I guess I would say, to say that.
Because it's not profitable.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no Jillian Michaels diet. Like, let's talk about profitability, should we?
Sure.
I mean, I understand that it's hard. So I'll get to the hard part in a minute. It's simple. Eat less, move more, use common sense with your food choices. That's the answer. It's not a profitable answer, though. So what's profitable is scandal, right? Selling some crazy new diet where you just eat liver from frogs. Or, some drug that promises a magic bullet. And by the way, I could sell you these drugs. Weight Watchers does. Noom does. I'm not sure if Fit On has started doing that. I thought they might, but I don't know. My point being, all you have to do is get MDs in-house. They can prescribe via telehealth, and you make a ton of money. Weight Watchers announced that they were getting into this business. They acquired a business that sells these drugs via the internet, and their stock went up like 60%.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. I didn't know
And
that.
while Oprah is like, oh, I wouldn't want anyone to get the wrong message. It's like, you profited $240-something million. Stop it. Stop it. Really, girl? Quit while you're ahead. Like, come on. So the thing is, like, if I really had bad intentions, I would turn around and this is exactly what I would do. I'd be like, okay, this is a miracle. Wow. We haven't seen anything like this. You need this. Sign up through our website. We're going to make it quick. We're going to make it easy. We're going to deliver it overnight. I could even get a compounding pharmacy to do it. Save a ton of money on that end, which, by the way, is safe, contrary to popular belief. But again, let's table that, right? I can get my own compounding pharmacy to make the drugs. I get my own MDs in-house. I ran a sports medicine facility. I know exactly how to do this. I can do it just like everyone else is doing this. But guess what? The number one concern is with these drugs is that you do lose muscle. If we could just get you working out. So we have a special workout program for people on GLP-1 drugs, and it's a wrap-up. You're going to get the meal plan, the workout plan, and the drug in all-in-one solution. Why would I not do that? Why? I don't know why, actually, because
Because you got kids to put through college, goddammit.
Yeah. I was like, wait a second. I certainly would need a 529 account for these kids. Like,
now that I described it, this doesn't sound bad.
Why? Years. It's been years of not compromising And I'll be honest with you, like Bob Harper did a deal with PepsiCo. He did a deal with Big Pharma for a diabetes medication. Dolvek Hoyens, who was another trainer they got on Biggest Loser, is the trainer on the homepage for Ozempic. Like all the dietitians that you see on social media, hashtag sponsored, bought and paid for. Bought and paid for. So when you go to question, all I'll say is follow the money, right? So now let's get back to the willpower piece, because this is where the shame part comes in. It's like, what's wrong with me? I don't have willpower. I'm so weak. I'm so lazy. You're none of those things. But just because weight loss is simple doesn't mean it's easy. And the reason it's actually not easy is in part the psychological hungers. And I'm sure you could talk about why you were overweight as a kid. I know I could talk about why I was.
I was eating my feelings, basically.
But of course.
Yeah.
Right? It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. That cliche is real.
Yeah.
It's cliche because it's so common and so real.
Yeah. Well, we feel threat, particularly in this day and age. Anyone who's on the internet feels a sense of fear and anxiety in relation to what's happening in the world. And unlike our hunter-gatherer ancestors, we actually have something at our disposal pretty much all of the time to assuage that feeling of threat. And it's right there in our cupboard. So we just unconsciously hover over there and pick out.
And there wasn't like an Oreo tree for our ancestors either.
And it provides a modicum of short-term respite from the crazy, threatening world.
Every single psychiatrist that I have spoken to, whether it's Dr. Daniel Amen or Dr. Anna Lemke or Dr. Uma Naidu, each and every one will tell you that the food is so highly addictive because of how it hijacks that reward center and dumps dopamine and serotonin that's supposed to drip, apparently, according to them, right? Yeah. Like what's going to drip dopamine would be sunlight, music, meditation, sex, exercise.
I love all those things.
All right, those are, and right?
Yeah, I love a nice IV drip of dopamine and serotonin. But this is a dump
like,
truck.
Man, it is like the scene in Pulp Fiction where he jams the organ thing right into her heart. It's like that. Yeah. So you've got these psychological vulnerabilities that can run on the surface of I'm stressed, I'm lonely, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, which I think a lot of us struggle with in the modern world you're describing. And then we can go a layer deeper, right? Like I have desexualized myself because, my mother's boyfriend molested me.
Right.
It gets, that shit goes deep. Yeah. And the food at one point or another for individuals like that meant their psychological survival. Mm-hmm. So no, it isn't as simple as just eat less and move more for them because of what the food is affording them. And that's what no one's telling you, right? So we're not saying, hey, listen, there is a deep emotional hunger that you are feeding with this. You're in denial about the real pain because it seems insurmountable. This addiction kept you alive. Like I spoke to an alcoholic once who said, I actually thank God for the days I was drinking because I would have killed myself. Mm-hmm. Because it's how that person coped. Yeah. Food was the same for many different people in that position. But then what happens is, I'm sorry, but corporate America knows this stuff about you and exploits it. Even the littlest anxieties to the deepest trauma, and you're not aware of it. And then they brainwash you and be like, no, Cheerios, here's the heart healthy stamp that we paid for from the American Heart Association. This is good. And then we paid this dietitian to tell you it's for sure. And you're like, okay, I guess it's for sure. And then you hate yourself because none of it works and you can't figure out what's wrong. And that's why I just get so pissed. It's like you are preying on the most vulnerable, you evil fucks. It's just... Was I allowed to say that?
Yeah, evil fucks. Yeah. But I mean, probably...
Devil!
Yeah. Probably first time for evil fucks on the podcast. But and it's this, it's I mean, I wouldn't say that there aren't greedy individuals, but there's also just, we've created systems and structures.
It's Wall Street.
Yeah.
It's about profit. Every year, I don't even know. My business partner does this, and so does my business manager. But they get on the thing, and what did the company do, and how much do we make this quarter? It's all about profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you listen to Callie, it means, and he'll tell you what a massive industry this is. It has a compound health and disease, rather, not health, but disease, has a compound annual growth rate of almost 10%.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I think
insane.
the last figures I saw were somewhere $4.4 trillion, 90% of which is spent on, 95% of which is spent on essentially sick care, treating symptoms of preventable diseases caused by, big food, go down the line. So
it is terrifying. It really is. I mean, and then you try to have the conversation in most legacy media. I'm not saying Fox is the right answer. I'm just saying I've done other interviews. News Nation, I like. They're pretty straightforward as well. But they'll outright call you anti-science. Like, wow, this is modern medicine. And you're like, but wait a second, these are lifestyle diseases.
Yeah. Or, what I hear a lot nowadays is that the sort of whole calories in, calories out theory for...
Stop. It's not a theory.
Yeah. No, but what I'm hearing is that it's kind of in the health zeitgeist.
It can't be anymore. And here's why I say here's why, because it was for a long time. Yeah. And I caught so much shit over it, and it used to make me furious because it is the law of thermodynamics. It literally is, energy is not created or destroyed in a vacuum. However, the first law, I think, law of thermodynamics. That said,
but what is the second law?
I don't even remember.
I know the second law.
If it doesn't pertain to weight loss, I don't know it. Then we're all the way out of my, my wheelhouse. Yeah. But get me into anything outside of this, and I'm a complete
It's actually
newbie.
It does have a little bit. It's about the thermic. You can apply it to the thermic effect of food, particularly with protein. So in the transfer of that energy, a certain amount of heat is given off, and so if you want to look, if you want to look at like eating protein, for example, like a big bolus of protein, we know that for every gram of protein, there's 4 calories, right?
Right.
But really, your body needs to expend quite a bit of energy metabolizing that. So it's really only 3 kind of net calories. That is the thermic effect of protein.
Take that.
And that is related to the second law of thermodynamics. Take that.
I will do.
Free of charge.
I may credit you.
No.
Depends on my ego that
there's
day.
There's just a licensing fee. That's it. No.
Well, no. Okay. Peter Attia has come out and said this is true. Lane Norton has come out and said this is true. I even think Andrew Huberman came out and said this is true. And I don't care how many women he slept with. It's none of our business. So the bottom line is all 3 men great at their jobs. And they've... Whenever I get into these situations, people love to go after me because they're like, where is the chink in her armor? Oh, she's not a PhD. And for years... Do you think I am an idiot? All I do is work with PhDs. Every book I write is with PhDs or MDs. And so, now I just go and I go get Peter. Yeah. I go get Lane. I'm like, tell him. No, we know that this is not the case. It's not.
Well, it's also you actually have hands-on experience helping people weight manage or lose weight.
Yeah.
Just period.
Yeah.
It's not theoretical.
No.
It's actually hands-on.
Yeah.
So, okay, calories in, calories out, right? You have to expend a certain amount of calories, for example, I think 3,500 calories if you...
They're generalizations, but the math is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So it's like if you went to the internet and you did like your BMR calculator, it's pretty accurate. Okay, I got to get roughly a deficit of roughly this much energy to burn a pound, 3,500 calories. It always pans out. And, I did an interview with Thomas DeLauer, who I really like. He's a big fitness influencer. And And he's like, tell me what you learned on.
That guy's so ripped.
I know, isn't that
He
annoying?
kind of gives me a little bit of envy. It's like projection of my unfulfilled potential onto someone else. Oh, but that guy, come on. My brain is very fit, but that guy is fit.
All the years on Biggest Loser, what did you learn? And the thing of it is, nobody can beat me at the weight loss game because I'm so brilliant. It's because nobody has done it the way I had to do it, year in, year out, with so many different people. And I was able to see in real time the biomarkers, the DEXA scans, the dunks. Like I got all the bioimpedance, all that shit. I got all that data every week. And I was able to see like, oh, this diet made no difference than that diet. And this calorie didn't change that. And then if we did a little more here or a little more there, I was able to see in real time to really fine tune it. But the bottom line is, yeah, the math didn't always pair out perfectly, right? So there'd be a contestant, a female that would lose 6 pounds and another one that would lose 8. But generally, by the way, the one that would lose 6 pounds had advanced PCOS. So whenever the math doesn't pair out to a degree that's really tangible, you're like, okay, this is, really, I should have lost 4 pounds and I've only lost 1 over time. We got to do it over a month. Because women, we can't hold water, or you have a salty dinner every week, can't go week to week. You got to look at it amortized, averaged out over the course of the month, right? There would be hormonal impacts, but that's going to be your metabolism, right? Still goes calories in, calories out, by the way, because it affects your BMR. But at that point, with those contestants, and I would get into the fight with the doctor on the show because his favorite thing to do. He was a Harvard-trained MD, so it's not like we were all quacks and I did not hire him, but I really didn't like him and I disagreed with him often because I was working with doctors outside of the show that were helping me that would subspecialize in different areas. And he loved to just rip them all off of their medication just so we could say we did it. But when you're not weaning somebody off of metformin, for example, it does give them a 6 when someone else gets an 8. And the problem is they go home because of that. So did she lose 6 pounds not on it? Sure. But was there an impact there? Yes. Was the math slightly off? Yes. But it's still pretty damn accurate and they could still lose all the weight. Yeah.
I think one thing that you pointed out, I got to listen to your script. We were laughing about this before. I put it in my Speechify and had Snoop Dogg narrate it to me.
I'm sure he did way better than me, which is annoying.
Well, Speechify also mispronounces certain words, and then you put Snoop Dogg on top of that. It's a very entertaining way to spend an afternoon driving.
Was it stoned Snoop Dogg or just right?
I think that's the only Snoop Dogg there is.
There is only one Snoop Dogg.
But that you can create that calorie deficit with just diet, but that deficit is relatively small. So let's say your basal metabolic rate is mine's probably around 1,500 calories a day. I don't know. It's a guess. I don't know actually, but it's more or less that's more or less I think if you have a decent amount of lean muscle, I think 1,500, 1,600 calories per day is kind of more or less what your basal metabolic
age, height, weight. You're gonna get a pretty good estimate.
So let's just say, even if I'm just sitting around watching Larry David all day, which sometimes I do.
Sounds nice.
I'm burning, just keeping my body alive and keeping it warm. I'm burning a baseline of calories, let's say 1,500 calories a day. So then let's say that I'm eating, if I'm on a Machiavellian austere diet, then I'm eating 1,200 calories, 1,300. That's still pretty hard to do that.
So air souffle and a speck of dust with a stem of broccoli and some boiled chicken.
Very much. So then that deficit,
really hard to do,
that deficit,
is minuscule.
It's minuscule. Sometimes I think about it as calories per pound. So I weigh about 160. So if I get about 12 or 13 calories per pound, I tend to lose weight. If I get about 15, I more or less maintain weight. If I'm 17 or 18 calories per pound, I'm generally gaining a little bit of weight. But let's just say I create a little bit of deficit. But that deficit is pretty small. It's
you get 300 calories a day. It's 12 days for 1 pound.
For 1 pound.
Yeah.
So where do you get...
And you're losing muscle along the way.
Yeah. So
which will cause the yo-yo diet, right? Exactly.
So where do you really get the deficit?
The deficit only comes from exercise. This is where people will say to me, what matters more, diet or exercise? It's like, well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. I'm in maintenance mode, so diet. I hate to admit this. I've had an interesting couple of months. I think I have missed weeks of exercise at a time.
Jillian Michaels.
I know, babe. My bastard son gave me the flu. Knocked me out for 3 weeks, for real. Working like crazy. I had to move. I had all kinds of shit. I had a surgery on my jaw. I had all kinds of shit. I don't think in my entire adult life I've missed this many days exercising. And I lost weight, probably because I lost muscle. Which is a separate story, but nevertheless, I did not gain weight. I just controlled what I ate. I wasn't crazy about it. I matched how much I ate to how much I burned, and I held. It's like balancing a checkbook, right? You spend what you earn. You're balancing your checkbook. Same thing with the calories. But so maintenance is really food. Exercise is the number one lever you can pull for longevity. I mean, we all know that. Looking at all of the different diseases. I mean, my God, from cancer, heart disease, diabetes, cognitive decline. Exercise is the most powerful lever. When it comes to weight loss, it's exercise. Because here's what's going to happen. You can't reasonably starve it off. And what I mean by reasonably is, sure, if you're eating 500 calories a day and you're injecting yourself on the HCG diet, right? Or you're eating 500 calories a day because you're injecting yourself with Ozempic, you're not reasonably dieting. You're legit starving. So what happens there is, you will waste away, but you'll actually waste away. Hence the reason you're losing all of that muscle. And then you've got the micronutrient deficiencies and it messes up your microbiome. There's a host of other things that go on there. So sure, that'll work again for a time until you adapt. And then the reason you yo-yo hard is because you've messed up your metabolism along the way. You've slowed your base point because your body thinks it's starving. You've lost all this lean tissue that supports your metabolic health. And you've effed yourself. You're way behind the 8 ball. So we don't want that. That's the worst thing we can do. So we set a caloric floor. And for me, my caloric floor is 1,200 for women, 1,600 for men with unlimited green vegetables. So I know they're getting fiber, phytonutrients, water content, but the 1,200 would be the protein and the fats. And if they want to put some other carbs in there, great, right? Because we've got all the unlimited greens and what have you. And for men, it's 1,600. If you want to go above that, absolutely fine. I would say match it to your BMR, whatever that may be. But the deficit comes from exercise. So the way that I was able to get these crazy numbers off of Biggest Loser contestants was through fitness. And it was a science. I was like, we're going to do this many steps a day and we're going to get this many minutes of high intensity interval training. We're going to do strength training, but not too much, 4 times a week, but with this much recovery. And I perfected it over time, obviously, because I could see the data week by week. But point being, where's the math? Even if they were burning without exercise, because they're bigger people, right? The girls were burning 2,500 calories a day. And I had them eating 500 calories a day. Okay, so 2,000 calories, 7 days a week. Where are we at there? 14,000? 14,000 calories, 14, right?
So,
they get a 14,000 deficit.
So we get 4 pounds.
Yeah, 4. I was getting 8.
Wow.
And by the way, you're destroying their body. So this didn't destroy their body. And what the irony is I would actually gain muscle on the DEXA scan, which I couldn't believe because it made no sense.
Yeah. And that's really the deal. I mean, it is weight, but it's also composition.
Absolutely. For health, for metabolic health, for longevity it is.
I mean, that's where I saw my blood sugar really, really come into balance. Muscle. I did all this other stuff, but the icing on the cake, no pun intended there, or it was really developing some muscle mass.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's just going to be a glucose sink all the time, even at rest. But and So yeah, and so I know you were really heavy on walking, on getting people to do a ton of walking, right?
Well, okay, here's why. When you're taking 20 pounds off of a guy in a week, they're going to get hurt. I need to make sure they're not getting hurt. They're going to get overuse injuries. It's way too much stress. So finding the balance, right? And intensity has an inverse relationship with volume. So the harder you train,
right,
the less amount of time you train, which is why Tabata protocols, 4-minute rounds, a couple rounds, maybe in a session, maybe more than once a week, maybe twice a week. So the more intense it is, the less time you're under tension or whatever it may be, the less time you're putting into that particular workout. So knowing that, I figured out very quickly that the bread and butter, the gravy, if you will, for high weight loss numbers while preventing overtraining, decrease in performance, and injuries. And trust me, they would get the shin splints and sore and all kinds of things, but not to the point that they were CrossFit kind of injuries where you're just done and effed for life. We would work our way through them as the body was adapting to the activity from being totally sedentary. But I could do all of that, as Peter Attia has kind of now rebranded as zone 2 cardio.
Right, yeah.
Right? And we used to call it like fat burning zone cardio, which is not actually true. But
what is it? Is it 60% of your maximum heart rate? I don't know. What
like
is it?
65, I thought.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I don't even pay attention. Like, you should be able to carry on a conversation. That's the key.
Right. You can talk to your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. That drives my heart rate, but for a whole other reason. Nothing to do with the exercise.
Right, okay. You can carry on a conversation with someone lovely.
Okay.
Hiking. Yeah. Incline walking. Swimming. I could get all the volume in. And I would have step goals. And there were the numbers. And then I used the other stuff, obviously, to like amp the burn, build the muscle, boost the HGH levels and really just eke out every little bit I could. But the pure volume came from that.
Again, if you think about how we evolved, how did we move our bodies? We mostly walked. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, generally against our will, we would have to do some form of hit or whatever, or some sprint, right?
Yep. So maybe running like from saber-tooth?
Toad ungulate or something. And then we would, gather, we would build fires and gather wood and, use our musculature. And that's basically how we evolved. And so really what it sounds like, you were essentially mimicking some of these sort of more or less the Paleolithic good use stress, adversity mimetics or whatever that we evolved with. And that makes total sense. In fact, I think the Hazda people, like there's a few remaining hunter-gatherer tribes, and they
really well, of course, I'm sure there would be a good Amazonian tribes,
and they walk about 6-7 miles a day.
Wow.
And I think that's like 15,000 steps. Not that they're having
I should
Apple
know
Watch,
this,
but
I can tell you how many times I've had to look up how many steps are in a mile.
Like, what were you getting?
I still get it wrong.
How many steps were you getting in BL? Like, crazy time.
So if I wasn't there, 20,000 was the minimum.
Wow.
On the days I was there, 10,000 was the minimum.
Fuck.
And that's on top of
10,000
minimum. I think that's like 5 miles. It's nothing. Sometimes they would walk like 15 miles if I wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of like the blisters on the feet,
yeah,
the shin splints, trying to manage, which is when I would be like, well, get in the pool, get on the elliptical, get on the rower. And I would usually prescribe different cardio regimens to try to manage those overuse injuries. Mm-hmm. So I'd be like, we're going to do 30 minutes on the elliptical with resistance here. And, you know, this is going to be your revolutions per minute. And then from there, you're going to get on the rower and we're going to do 2-minute interval, like, what was it, 500 meter intervals in 2 minutes. Like, I would give them these prescriptions throughout the day to get the activity that I wanted in, but I would mix up the activities to avoid like their tibialis from ripping off the bone kind of thing.
I think, you know, the moral of the story here,
gastrocnemius tears off the bone.
It's like that managing your weight this way creates upward spirals in your life that you don't even expect. And I'll give you an example just from my personal life. About 6 months ago, maybe, I started doing squats. Okay. I was never that guy. Mostly like air squats. And then I started doing them like on the Bozu ball, like with weights. And my legs.
What if I took you off the Bozu ball?
Yeah, you can do.
Why do you like it?
So this is why I like the Bozu ball.
Tell me.
Is that it focuses my attention.
Okay, I like that.
And my breath. It's kind of almost a strange meditative way of doing squats or working out.
I'll take it.
Because I can't let my attention drift or I'll actually lose my balance and fall over.
Okay,
so that process of centering myself and becoming very, very quiet and
one
focused,
with the ball.
One with the ball.
Okay.
And then engaging my core while I'm doing, let's say in this particular situation, air squats. Now you can get me off the Bozu ball in a second, but I'll just make the connection here. Is that so? I'm an avid tennis player. I'm still playing like pretty competitively.
Oh, then you do want those stabilizer muscles really strong.
And what I found is that training these, and I'm pointing to my legs, trains my head, my brain.
That's interesting.
Because I know in the third set, after 2.5 hours in the 85-degree heat, I'm still going to be there.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you can play as hard as you want, but I'm going to be fitter than you at the end of the day. And what that does over time to my sense of confidence, and then subsequently to my sense of relaxation and ease in those tough, close moments, I'm just there. And I really attribute that mostly to working on my physiology
100%.
and the impacts that my physiology then had on my psychology. It was really interesting.
Okay.
2
parts.
Yeah.
Unstable platforms prevent your ability to generate maximum power. So power is speed and strength, and those are 2 really important modalities, especially when we get past the age of 40 and we're really trying to keep muscle on. So if you mixed it up and you did both, I would be okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Both.
Okay. You're such a hard ass.
Okay. All right. Now then, and with regard to the transcendent aspects of fitness, you're 100% right. And one of the most important things I would see with people I worked with pre-Biggest Loser and during Biggest Loser is how it would impact their sense of worth and ability. It's very easy to tell somebody, you can do it. You're worth it. But not if their whole life they felt like they haven't succeeded and they were told they weren't worth it, right? That's their whole reality. That's their whole belief system now. So you just saying so, it's like, yeah, right. And pigs can fly, fuck off. They're not buying it. But if you're able to give somebody an experience that shatters that prison of limiting beliefs, it becomes exponential. And people would, she's such a bitch and she yells at people that are overweight. It's like, you have no fucking idea what I'm doing. So shut up. And it used to drive me insane. But you would take a contestant on Biggest Loser. I'll give you an example. We had a contestant named Shay Sorrells, and I think it was season 7. She was the biggest woman we had ever had on the show, like 500 pounds. And horrible backstory, by the way. Her mother was a heroin addict who would lock her in a closet while she would turn tricks for drugs. She went into the foster care system. I mean, by the way, Shay is one of the most amazing women that I know, but a horrendous life. So when you get to 500 pounds, we're beyond the chemically addictive Twinkie, right? It's not a matter of willpower. That's the deeper stuff I'm talking about. Nevertheless, day 1, 500 pounds, the percentages aren't there. Remember, Biggest Loser was percentage of weight lost on body. She needed to lose double what every other girl would lose to stay on the show, or every other person would lose. So day one, right? We're first workout, and I want her to go on the Stairmaster for 15 seconds. And she's like, and they're, all rolling on the floor, vomiting, crying, sniveling, like the whole bullshit. I'm a victim. The whole game we got to beat out of them. Literally, I'm not kidding, because time is of the essence. It's a life or death intervention on a ticking clock. I'm trying to get this woman on this fucking Stairmaster. It's going on for hours. She will not stay on there for 15 seconds. I grab her. This is a 500-pound woman who's this much taller than me. And I throw her into the wall. I'm like, I swear to God, if you don't get this Stairmaster, I will kill you my fucking self. And, I hijack the fear in her brain. And I'm like, climb or you're going. Look at how. You just gotta go crazy on her. She climbs 15 seconds. And I'm like, we're done. Go inside. I go home. The next day I come in and she's like, I went back to the gym and I did a full minute last night and I did it 10 times. But it's exactly what you're saying about your legs. My point is that when she was like, oh my God, I could do this. Let me see if I can do it again. Let me see what else I can do. And it begins to open up an infinity of possibility that you thought wasn't available to you. That's where fitness is transcendent.
And you're not going to get that from Ozempic.
No. Ooh, it'd almost kill you. No, climb the stairs for 15 seconds. No, you will not get that at all. It won't solve any of the root causes whatsoever.
Yeah, amazing. So what's going on in the asteroid field of Jillian Michaels now, as to wrap up, so people can keep abreast of all of the many
things,
transcendent things you're doing?
More of the same with regard to putting information into the zeitgeist that's honest and authentic. Podcasting, the fitness app that is, all the things, the home workouts, the gym workouts, all the modalities you like, meal plans, blah, 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 all those things. It's the same old,
don't write it off, but this is the real deal here.
It is the same old. I've been doing a lot more things like this, which is, I used to do the Today Show and talk about arms for the summer. Now I do these long form podcasts and hits in the news about trending health topics to bust myths.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Strategically investing in better for you companies to try to be alternatives to soda and shitty snacks and drugs. Whether it's a supplement company I've invested in or a better for you food company and so on. And it's something so cool with Commune.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what I would say, and listen, I've been a follower and admirer for many, many years, and obviously the work that you're doing to help people is you're at the tip of the spear. I think that the role that you're playing right now, in terms of being able to have the thorny, hard conversations, is one of the most important things that anyone could be doing, to actually be out there and be honest and empower people to take deeper looks at industry and who's profiting, and also empowering people to take a look at themselves and where that they can have agency over their own lives. And there's just not enough people doing that. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. But there is one caveat, and I want to throw this out. Profiting. I make my living doing it.
Yeah.
So you got to look at, what is this person selling? And then do your own homework on that product. Like, what's Jillian selling? She's selling exercise. Will that kill me? But I'll sell you collagen. I like collagen. I'll sell it to you. Do your homework on it. Is this wasting my money? Does it really work? What do the studies say? Always question what somebody's selling you. I make money in this field 100%. I think I'm selling you good shit, but do your own homework on it. That's the point. It's all a business for sure. So when you say follow the money, you're kind of utilizing common sense of, does this make sense? Where's the message coming from? And how are the people profiting off of that message? What's the product? And what does the data show me about this product over time? That's the key, is to really is to do your own homework. Don't even trust me. I don't even want you to trust me. I don't want you to look into the things I'm saying. Then you should trust me, because you'll see that I'm right. Largely.
For some reason, I can't figure out why I trust you. I'm still trying to figure out why.
Because I'm not rich enough. That's why. I could be a whole lot richer. That's probably why.
All right. Well, we'll do our best to accomplish that. All right. Jillian Michaels, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then I think you'll love this one too.